Born of loss. The couple, Marla and Elias, had yearned for a child. Year after year, their laughter-filled home grew heavier with silence. The rooms became tombs of dashed hopes. They attended every appointment, every consultation, left no stone unturned until all the stones were cast back at them, each a reminder of their failure. When they turned to adoption, eager to give a lost child a home, the agencies rejected them again and again. They were deemed too isolated, too eccentric, their rural house too remote. Even fostering was denied. Their grief congealed into something dark and twisted, a yearning too fierce, a longing no one could understand. It was then that Marla found the forbidden tome, the yellow pages whispering to her in fragments of spells. Her fingertips trembled as she read the words, and she knew she could never share this with Elias. But when she saw him at the dinner table one night, staring into his empty plate as if all the life had drained from him, she decided to show him the spell. Their eyes met, and without speaking, they knew what they would try. A child woven from their own magic, something uniquely theirs. They began by gathering elements at midnight, the witching hour. A lump of river clay, slick and cold, became the child's skin. They worked it with bare hands, pressing, molding, shaping limbs and curves. The clay was wet and sticky, clinging to their hands, the earthy smell sharp in the air. The child's body began to take shape under their fingers, a rough, doll-like figure. But as they pressed their intentions into it, the figure slowly smoothed, morphing into something human-like. Their hands trembled, slick with sweat and clay, yet they felt exhilarated, their pulses thudding in unison. When it came time for the eyes, they needed something more than clay. Elias brought out shards of polished glass, scavenged from broken bottles found around their property. They held up the pieces, each fractured shard reflected twisted parts of their faces. Carefully, they pressed the shards into the clay face, shaping glimmering eyes that captured light in unsettling, jagged ways. The shards shifted as if alive, catching their faces in warped reflections. Then came the hair. Marla plucked strands from her own head, silvering with age, and tied each one with a thread Elias spun from old spider webs gathered from the attic. It was delicate work, stitching the hair into the scalp of the clay child. Their fingers bled from the tiny pricks, the coppery scent mingling with the clay's earthy odor. Blood flecked the child's scalp, turning its hair dark in parts, slick with something half alive. But they both knew the most crucial part remained, the heart. They could feel the lifelessness in the body, its hollowness like a void. They knew that without a heart, the creation would be nothing but a hollow thing, a husk. Marla remembered the spell, the part she'd read over and over. A heart must be born of sacrifice. They looked at each other, the question heavy between them, until Elias left the room and returned with a small, beaten tin box. Inside lay his most prized possession, his mother's locket. It had once carried her portrait and a lock of her hair, but the years had eroded it, tarnishing its silver. Still, it held a fragment of warmth, of humanity, of love. The spell said the heart must carry a cost, and this was Elias's price. With a trembling hand, he took a knife and pried the locket open, extracting the fine, crumbling strands of hair that had long since faded to gray. Marla and Elias held the locket in their joined hands, whispering words that felt foreign, wrong, and heavy. The locket began to pulse, a weak but undeniable throb, They placed it into the chest cavity of their clay child. The spell demanded a final price: their own blood, the essence of their longing. They each made a small cut to their palms and pressed their hands over the locket, allowing their mingled blood to seep into the clay. The locket took it in, sucking the blood with a dreadful, eager thirst, the sound like someone slurping marrow from a bone. Clay Child shuddered, a tremor passing through it. They watched transfixed as veins began to trace across its body, dark rivers winding under the clay. The child's mouth, sculpted with care, twitched and parted, a small exhalation of breath escaping, as if it had waited years to taste air. Elias felt a pang, a twist deep inside his chest. He felt weakened, as if something vital had drained from him. He stumbled, but Marla steadied him, her own face worn and gaunt, her eyes hollowed with the cost of their sacrifice. They watched as the clay child opened its glass eyes, its head turning slowly, mechanically, toward them. The face was empty, doll-like, but the heart within it pulsed with stolen warmth, and in those fractured eyes they saw reflections of themselves, distorted and wrong, twisted as if caught in a nightmare. The child's lips moved, a whisper slipping out in a voice that sounded like both of theirs combined, haunting and hollow. Mother, father. It took a step forward, but the movements were jerky, unnatural, its clay skin cracking in places, bleeding faint tendrils of their mingled blood. It reached for them, and they recoiled, the warmth of their creation now a cold, hollow terror. It followed, moving closer, and they saw themselves reflected in its eyes, a distorted, shattered love, staring back, twisted and broken. They had wanted a child, but what they had given life to was something else entirely, a creation born not of love, but of loss, of desperation and blood.